you're very well known in the open source community for React Spring, React Fiber, Three.js. But this open source work, is it part of your day job or?
Yes. These all like represent little problems I was facing at work or otherwise, and everything that can be generic enough, I'm putting into library because this opens it up for contribution and so on. And it also works out for the company because obviously they benefit, and it's like a good symbiotic relationship.
Well, that's crazy, and I want to quickly point out how small the world is. That like there are 3 people here who all live so closely together, and we all maintain a library that can do Spring animations.
Yes.
But yeah, really interesting. So your employer, they benefit from React Spring and React Tree Fiber.
Yes.
So it must be a really cool company that you're working for.
Yes, definitely. They're called AWV. We are working on a product called Bully. It's like a CAD system for the open web. And really something like that just didn't exist before. And that's how most of these libraries actually started. And the idea is to create something like an ecosystem so everyone benefits. People will use this, they get aware of these products that we do. And generally, we like to support open source, and that's just, that belongs to the mission that we have.
So, like you said, you are most famous, I would say, for React Spring and React Tree Fiber. But these projects you publish under a collective, I would say. I think it's pronounced Poimandres or...
Poimandres, yes.
Poimandres. Yeah, can you tell me who is Poimandres?
That's a term from occultism. I just like it, and that's the kind of stuff I read personally. But it started with the React Spring organization. The idea was I started a library and it was attached to my personal GitHub repository. And I thought maybe I should let it go a little bit, put it on a neutral organization to be more inviting, because I didn't feel like people want to contribute to some guy's GitHub repository. I also want people to have like a stake. You are using it in your company or whatever. Maybe you want to be part of it, have maintainer rights or even author rights. So that was the basic idea. And this just grew into more and more libraries, some of which have grown popular, Zustand and so on, React Tree Fiber and so on and so forth. And at some point we thought, we are like 30 developers now. And we thought, hey, let's open this up. Let's give it a real name. Let's make it official. And people actually, they write us and they say, hey, I'm this and that developer from this and that country. I have a cool idea. Do you want me to put it on Poimandres? Because it gives a lot of promotion. So we're also doing this now. That's the basic idea.
Does it get overwhelming sometimes, the open source side of things, because you're doing it at such a big scale?
Yeah, that's also what I'm telling my boss. It's hard to switch it off. It's a little bit different. I have my work day. I don't know, a couple of hours, but everything I do open source, of course, also is related to work. But open source, you can't switch off. You're like constantly curating and helping out people and, I don't know, solving their problems and fixing bugs. And it's like, it never stops. Work day, weekend, doesn't matter. It's overwhelming, but it gets better with many people. We all help each other out. One developer faces a problem, and he just goes to Discord and says, hey, could you help? And we all come and look at it, and that's kind of cool. It's really helpful like this, to have a relationship like this.
Would you say now you are doing the open source stuff way more structured than it used to be? Are there like some key learnings?
Of course.
Yeah.
I guess the most important is to just let go, to trust people. Of course, it can also go the other way, and we just had some episodes recently, but it doesn't matter. You trust people to do the right thing. You open up your libraries. You say, okay, I just do it. You have proven your worth. Just go ahead and do what you want to do. And for me, at least, this has worked out. People get jobs because of it. They have access to funding. They get talks. They get like personal promotion. And I like to see this as opposed to that's like my personal thing. I don't really like to go about this in open source. It's more fun if you're more people and things become more like flexible. As you all know, you are open source maintainers. It can really like suck your soul if you're just behind this all by yourself, and then you have to reconcile this with your work life, with your private life. It's getting increasingly hard. So for me at least, it was the right decision to make it like neutral and not so attached to my name.
All right. And for instance, Johnny, you are trying to put like to build a business model behind your open source library. In your case, I guess you guys didn't think about trying to monetize some of the libraries. Like you use it, I guess, to build the product, which is barely, and I guess there is a lot of virtuous circles that come.
Yes.
Because you put something out there, and also people, I guess, they help you to improve it, and that's how you, basically you are building a commercial product based on all these open source libraries.
Yes, Burely is also a part open source, part free, and then there's an aspect of it where it goes like deeper and very customized, so people pay for this. But as for the open source stuff, I just like if things are free and accessible. There are some funds, like Poimandros has $25, something like that. Personally, my GitHub, I think, is like 500 over several years, so it's peanuts.
Via GitHub sponsor or something.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly, but it doesn't matter so much. I don't care for this. I care more for the like ecosystem because it allows people to express themselves in ways like Remotion. This just wasn't possible before, and I guess it's interesting to see what people do, and afterwards develop many possibilities that wouldn't have there before. Some of which can't be like valued with just money.
Absolutely. We also often say to ourselves, okay, we don't care about the money. This this podcast, I mean, it's not like on the YouTube trends in the charts, but we really enjoy doing this. And especially with open source, I feel in general, people don't see it, that how much love and passion these projects get created, rather than that there isn't much money coming out of it. Super underappreciated, right?
Yeah.
This so we always write each other, we don't care about that money. We don't care about money. It's because it comes from the movie Jiro Dreams of Sushi. I don't know if you've seen this documentary.
No, I always wanted.
It's
My wife, she's totally into sushi, but we haven't seen it yet.
It's a beautiful, and if you're a software developer, you can relate to some aspects because it's about, mastering your craft and so on. And at some point, he says, we don't care about money. We just want to make good sushis. So, yes.
Yes. That's what open source is mainly about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we've talked a bit before, and you mentioned that you were previously into photography. Is software engineering your background, or did you
definitely
switch?
Yeah, no, always software engineering, coding. But I had like lots of hobbies, and one of which was photography, art, design, painting, stuff like this. Everyone in my family is an artist. My sister is a designer. My father is a painter. My mom was like making sculptures. So I'm just like the black sheep, messing around with code, but still I cannot
doing
like shake it
creative
off.
things
I need this. I cannot function if I'm just like handling forms, and it
Yes.
just robs me of something. I can't go like that.
Yes.
It's the most artsy way of software engineering.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Interesting. So you had a photography project before.
Yes, it was like some platform, Lux and Laune, it was called. It was just like pretty famous in Germany. People come together, they share information, something like this. We were like building little communes. We get together and we make little trips into the nature and things like this. But I don't do this anymore. But still helps me to this day to know about light, what is key light, what is main light, all this nonsense. It helps a lot in design and everything. Yeah. Also, of course, with this 3D stuff.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
it's
then
really helpful.
you can use your creative muscle in the code.
I don't say I'm good at it. It's just there's a little bit of background that helps definitely.
And if not that, I think you're underestimating yourself a little bit. But if not that, then you're at least enabling other people to create incredibly arty stuff. I have tried React Tree Fiber myself, and I say this is like something that I would have never gotten into. So I think there are like several layers of abstraction here. So we have like bare WebGL, which almost nobody is able to learn because that's way too low level and hard to create something interesting with. Then came Tree.js, which abstracted it just enough that people could build cool stuff with it. But if you have ever used Tree.js, it's like a totally imperative API, and you just use like
Declarative, you mean? I would say it's a mix of. No, Free.js, you mean?
Yes.
Sorry, yeah.
So
Yes,
yeah, this is the
imperative.
point. So React Tree Fiber converts all this like imperative Tree.js code. It was like also very class and object based, like const mesh equals new mesh, then mesh dot position, all that. And then you render each frame manually using a request animation frame. So pretty different to how React works. And now React Tree Fiber converts all of this into React. And since this is my mental model of programming and what I'm most familiar with, of course, I use React Tree Fiber.
Yeah. No, same. I started to. I did. So my mental model to think about this OpenGL stuff is if it's 2D shader. I mean, you can write a shader yourself. Of course, there is a lot of boilerplate if you really do it with the WebGL API. Then there is GL React, which is pretty interesting to bring the composition model, like component model from React, and you can do compositions and so on, which is pretty good. And then if you do 3D, you use Free.js. And yeah, so I started like to do some play around with Free.js. But of course, if you have a React project, we use it in React Native. We want to have the React way to do it declaratively.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously like benefits. Actually, the difference is not so as much as people think that it's like a game is totally different from handling forms or whatever. I came to think of it a little bit differently now because there's not so much difference. It's like a state machine. Doesn't matter if it's a game or anything like UI front end. You have state and something reacts to it, and 3JS also has like a scene. You have as you mentioned, you have groups and meshes and materials and so on, but they're all like grouped together in a graph that React can very well manage. And there's something about hooks which for me are like the sweet spot, because you cannot just shed the imperative model. It just doesn't work. And before React Fiber, like years ago, there existed actually something like it. It was called React 3. But this was just about expressing 3JS declaratively. And we looked at this, and it could never like solve our problems, because just as that's just one half of it. And hooks kind of befriend the declarative with the imperative. Like the most important hook, for instance, in React 3 Fibers useFrame, which binds a component to the render loop.
Yeah.
And that's actually crazy, because previously you have this massive render loop. It's like all encompassing. And that's a break from this mental model. But behind all this is still React. You use it for the same reason why you would use it for React DOM. No, I mean for the DOM. Like, yeah.
That's interesting. So React 3 already existed and it didn't solve your problem. So you went with the name React 3 Fiber.
Yeah, I didn't.
Why?
I don't know. I was actually checking out names and couldn't find anything. And React at this time, they had something called Fiber, React Fiber. They don't use this name even anymore. So that was their effort to make React more cross-platform, because before people think of React as only the DOM or only for like Android and iOS. And it's kind of weird, because React is not like this. React is completely cross-platform. It does not have any relation. If you check out the package on NPM, there's no relation to DOM or Android or anything. It just says this is a component, and these are the rules with which these components can communicate. And they try to take this model and apply it like everywhere. And I think I listened to some podcast with Pete Hunt, and that was even the initial idea. They immediately recognized like we have something that can express anything on any platform. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So you wanted to be future-proof by using the Fiber.
Yes, I mean, what is the alternative? 3JS has like 300 classes, and then they have this examples package. I think it's 600 or 500.
Yes.
So are you going to wrap each single one? And they don't have semantic versioning. They like to have massive breaking changes. Like every month they break everything. So what are you gonna do? You maintain this forever as a single person? That's just not feasible. If I were, or if I represent a company that's looking for a solution, I see something like that, I say, no, that's not possible, because this guy, I don't know, at some point he doesn't feel like it anymore, so what happens? And that cannot happen with a renderer, because not bound to a particular 3JS version or any platform. Just like the DOM, they add new feature, React can have it. Yeah, except web components.
So there is there like some magic in the way you guys wrap some of the...
No.
Because I noticed in the types, it's but maybe it's just the way the types are written, but they're like accessible as like global components. Part of the JSX namespace.
It's just the types.
It's just the types, okay.
They are not necessary, but if you're a TypeScript user, you want to type JSX and you want your IDE to inform you about like bugs and errors and so on. No, the way it works, it's just like a form. React Reconciler is an official construct, like a library. You take this, you instantiate it, and they ask you to fill out a form. What are the global elements of your platform? On the DOM, it's like diff and span. 3JS, it's mesh and material. And then they say, okay, how do you add something to something? How do you remove it? So you fill out the form. And I think the first comment was like 100 lines. And it was freaking working. Nice. That was amazing. And I was really surprised to see it go.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's just the generic concept of React Reconciler.
Nice. Do you feel so? You're very happy with this API, the Reconciler API?
This idea is like groundbreaking. I'm in software developing for a long time, and we all dreamed of cross-platform. But the way we thought of it was different. We thought like there's some unified UI, I don't know, Silverlight, all this nonsense. And it looks like the same on every platform, but that's just not the way, and that cannot work. Like Java, it looks horrible. I don't know if you use a Java application, I think Eclipse or something like this. It just doesn't feel right. And now imagine Eclipse on your cell phone, smartphone. No, it's just a different way of tackling the problem. As an example, React Spring is a library for animation. It does not animate a div or a span. It animates a React component. And for this reason alone, I can use it and animate like Remotion or React Native, or I mean, the crazy React renderers out there. There was one that drives like hardware, like diodes, and I don't even know. But you could animate this stuff. I tried personally with Shell. So you have like a native shell, and it's like animating. It's going with Spring physics. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think this is like some really nice philosophy. Just like Steve Jobs said, no, we don't want Flash. We need something better. And also, I think it aligns really well with the React philosophy, where they try to make the core as agnostic as possible. I also try to draw inspiration from it, but so I totally agree. This is the way to go. One thing that you mentioned is that 3JS they have like some wildly different concepts, no semantic versioning, and like I also took a 3JS class, and it seems that like sometimes you just like import some useful classes from the examples folder. And almost sounds like these files are in 3JS by accident, because like all the examples are published on NPM, and that there are wild breaking changes all the time. And yet you claim that your React Tree Fiber is completely agnostic to all these breaking changes. I wonder how that works, that if now the API changes again in the next version, that you still remain very free.
I mean, it's not magic. If you use something in your code base that isn't there anymore because 3JS has taken it out, of course it will crash. React Tree Fiber is not going to prevent this from happening. But if they add, for instance, a new primitive, they recently added instancing. You don't need an update, because you update 3JS. You install React Tree Fiber along with 3JS, and really what React Tree Fiber is just a different way to express 3JS. That's all it is. So instancing is immediately available, and that's it. The only thing that could like lag behind a little bit is types, but they hate types. They hate everything that is new. They hate modules. They hate npm. Maybe hate is a strong word, but they kind of cater to people from like the 90s. Like how's that even called?
People who do like web, no npm, script,
no tools.
Script tag. This is really tailored for this.
You mentioned like this examples. They are not even modules.
Yes.
There's like something else.
Yeah.
We recently even ripped this out, and we hosted ourselves on Poimandrus, because it's just we want front end to think of 3D as not something for like games and stupid things. We want it to be more feasible. Like you've seen all these agencies, what they do. It's like insane, the landing pages they do. And we want front end to wake up to this, because that's just reserved for very little, small, reserved community of experts. And we want this stuff to be available for everyone, basically. and it just cannot go that you have something that's not a module, or it makes your bundle twice as big just for importing it, because cannot tree shake. So we try to fix all of these issues if they want or not. But we are not against any of this or any one of them.
So by extension, did you guys become substantial contributor to the FreeJS library or not? Not so much.
It's just not possible.
Not possible. Okay.
It's maintained by maybe 2 or 3 people, and I've tried lots and lots of times to I don't know, make them aware of the bug or whatever, and they would just say, no, this bug, someone may rely on this bug.
This bug, yeah.
We're not going to fix it. Okay. Or the whole review process takes way too long, and I also think they have lots of like weight on their shoulders, and we try to help a little bit. For instance, by taking out those examples, it represents like many useful little things. And we host it on Paimandros, open it up, everyone can come and contribute. Already we have turned the whole thing into classes, it can tree shake, these are models, we have fixed like many bugs. It works, open source is working. If you're not like holding on your thing too much, if you know what I mean.
Was there ever a temptation to, in React Fiber 3, to do changes that would add some frictions between FreeJS and React, but then would do the things you really wanted to do?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
We're not going to change how 3JS works because I wouldn't like it. As you said, Johnny, you go through some tutorial, you learn 3JS, and then you want to try it in React, and everything is different. That's just not going to go. But the cool thing is that with React, you have components and you have abstractions, and these components are self-contained, which is not possible in the imperative space, because it would always assume that everyone is like using the same infra. But here we have it, and we have made a library called, in German, 3. It's 3, and we put all these abstractions and make it easier for people to use. What in 3JS may be like a wall of code, now it's just
nice.
You plug something in and it works.
All the open source libraries that have been mentioned that you are responsible for, it's really insane, right? So React Spring, Zustand, Dry, React Fiber, 3, and there is probably more that I'm not even aware of.
Gestures is a big one.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear about Zustand, which I don't know anything about, but I've heard it has been getting some hype. So for those that don't know, Zustand is just the German word for state. Right. Very fitting. What made you decide, let's make a new state library for React?
The same problems. We were using Redux before that, and just faced a couple of problems. Obviously the boilerplate, and I never liked the opinionated nature. Like sometimes you don't need reducers, or sometimes you want to put a function into your state model. Sometimes you don't want to, how's this called, if you make everything into JSON and then hydrate it again. I don't know, that's the name for this. Sometimes you don't need all this. And yeah, it was just too complex, but I love how the principles work, and they are Flux. And I think we're even closer to the original React Redux from Dan Abramov. The original idea was you have something like create state, and it gives you like an API. You can say get state, set state, and so on. And with Zustand, we have something you say create, and it gives you a hook. So you don't need provider and all the stuff, which initially was never part of the idea. And with Paimandros, we host 3 state libraries: Zustand, Jotai, and Valtio. And people often they ask, why would you do this? They represent like 3 different ways of managing state. One is Flux. I think Zustand is like the simplest, most reduced that Flux can be. Like reduces everything down to the principles. Jotai is similar to Recoil, but I think Recoil has, I looked over the export catalog. It's like 40 APIs or something like this. Jotai has like 3 or 4. So it's like the most simple that atomic state model can be. And the other is Valtio. I don't even know myself how to pronounce this. This is proxy state, like MobX. And people say, MobX is so simple. And then you go to this website and it's like, you're reading a book before you can start. They say, no, it's just try this, but it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And Vasio is like one API and that's it. It's like Svelte or Vue. You have your model, state model, and then you just go and mutate it. But you can also like enclose some class state model with computed props, things like that. That's the idea, to just reduce, make it very simple. That's actually the main idea behind Poemandras, to make everything focused, working together, simple.
But here it sounds like you guys really made an effort to try to offer something to the community, and it's not necessarily, we need to solve our own use case and then we make it available to people. Here you really try to build, like, make an offer of...
Yes, of course. People will still use Redux and so on. It's just sometimes you don't need it. I mean, Zustand can do everything that Redux can do. I don't think there's any case where even like middleware and stuff like that, it's like 100% compatible. But I don't care. I never did. I just make it. I promote a little bit on Twitter, make lots and lots of examples. This may be the best hint for open source maintainers. Just don't abandon your project. Make examples, like if you want every day, make them a little bit fancy so that people enjoy to see it. And I just kept on doing it because I use it myself. It's solving my problems. And little by little, people are like, hey, this can work out for me too. That's why you heard of it. But yeah, it's just a little library.
And just to go back on the React Reconciler, do you feel like, because you're using it so successfully, do you feel like it's maybe underrated? And do you see a lot of things in the world where you're like, whoa, they should be using it and they are not? Or...
Yeah, could be. I mean, the awareness is certainly not where it should be. Because when people speak of React, they think of HTML and the DOM. And it would be nice if this shifts a little bit. But actually there are many renderers now, like dozens. What do you use, Figma or Sketch?
Figma. Sketch, I guess.
I'm still a Sketch user.
But transitioning
I don't know about Figma, but there's a React Reconciler for Sketch.
Yes.
So that's crazy. You can wow. It's very close to Remotion. You can like code your design system, and there's so many others. Like for Canvas 2D, it's called Conva. I don't know. There was a list. There are like tons. Like Ink. This maybe you've heard of. You're using...
for the command line.
Yes, for the command line.
Oh, yeah.
If you're using Jest, it gives you out like this cute little colored numbers and these little nice animations. These are all React.
Yeah.
So,
I actually made something really cool using Ink, but then I like reached a state where I was like only 90% happy. And so it's like out there, but that's exactly the problem. I think if I properly announced it, made examples, good documentation site, it could have gotten more popular, but I literally never announced it. It's called NPX make space. So on your Mac, you can type it and it will find ways to free up space. And that is like a command line application written in React. But yeah, then I was only...
And it's using Ink.
That's using Ink, yeah.
Nice. Cool.
Really cool, really cool. I mean, So on the command line, you can usually just write text, console.log. Okay, that's easy. But then how do you delete the text that you have written? That's already pretty tricky for a normal developer. And then using different colors, that's like you just write some garbage character sequence, and then it turns blue. And like clearing the whole screen and redrawing everything, way too complicated. And ink is like an amazing idea.
Yeah, you can build whole user interfaces with this, like with sections and menus and even like mouse input and stuff like this. Like in the old like DOS days before Windows, it's pretty cool. And that's all React. Same mannerisms, same behavior, same components. Yeah.
It's a perfect storm because on one hand we have this component programming model which is so powerful, and now with hooks it reached an order of magnitude higher in terms of composability and so on. And then we have this tool now to be cross-platform essentially.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Good times.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I played also a bit. I mean, is it fair to say we're both quite beginner with free React Fiber? And
yes, I am. This example that I posted that I think you saw, I was ashamed to put out the code because I couldn't figure out how to do it cleanly. Like I tried to put out a word and animate each character, but like that did not work. So I rendered each character individually, and then I just couldn't figure out how to properly center it, and I would just do like -100 to fix it. So this is why I don't want to show my code. So yeah, in short, I'm still a beginner.
So same. Ashamed, I did a small example with Free.js. Ashamed of the way I achieved it. I hacked my wave rate. I did things which were not clean. And then what I did is that I made a video and tutorial on YouTube, and I said, okay, guys, for this part, I can show you the animation stuff. But for this part, if you have some experience with Free.js and so on, please help me out to show me how to do it properly. I think some of the issues I had, so the first thing I did is that I used UseFrame to animate. And then I think what I was doing in UseFrame is to use the ref of the component to then do imperatively, maybe set a rotation or something. This is the way to do it, right?
That's the way to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Then so basically I had two issues where I didn't find the clean way to do it. Is that in an object, you can set like a rotation. So you say rotate and you pass a vector. I didn't know how to apply a matrix because I wanted to apply a pivot, to rotate on a pivot. So I was like, I need to have like a transformation matrix. And I didn't find a way to do it. And then, so that was the first thing which was ugly is that I had to set some init state where in UseFrame I could say, okay, this is going to be the...
okay.
Yeah, that's getting dirty.
That's not so nice. Yeah.
Yes, and then the next level in dirtiness is that I knew how to imperatively apply a matrix, but then I didn't know how to apply a matrix where it would be like a reset. That would be the only transform. So every time it would accumulate to the previous matrix I applied. So instead of calculating my animation, this is the rotation, apply this matrix, I would calculate the delta from... You look.
You know what you actually...
Don't file a bug report in person.
Yeah, I know. Can you debug this, please, right now?
I actually couldn't. You're in front of me with this stuff. I actually don't know what, like how matrix works. I have no idea. I'm not versed in this math stuff. But the cool thing is, with the right amount of learning, you can like circumvent all this. Like, why do you use matrices? You can use a group as a pivot point, and then you just have.
But already you're blowing my mind.
It's not so hard.
Yes.
We are trying with Poimandris and the collective to also like waken up people that all this kind of stuff is not so hard as they think. Because previously you see 3JS and you only see math. It even starts from the beginning. You open something up and they say, okay, here's how you make a box. Before you go, it's like half a page of like a ton divided by math pi blah blah blah. It's like horrible.
That's the part I love.
But no, for me it's a part I hate.
Okay.
I don't want even to see it. I don't want to be exposed to it. I get like mathematicians, they enjoy it, but I don't even know what it means. And
But
I don't know.
Okay, it's so interesting because in my case, that's the part I could use to get away with not knowing the API. So I was like, oh, I need to use a pivot. And I was like, I didn't even try to look in the documentation or whatever. I went into the Redash code where we do already these matrix multiplications. And I was like, oh, this is my matrix. Because in React Native animations, we also do these kind of things. And like, this is what I need to apply. And then I went, but no, that's sounds cool. It's so funny you said group. Last week tutorial, I was doing SVG animation, and I had also like some
Pivot groups, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I used the group for me. It was obvious, and it's funny because I didn't have the reflex to do the same thing in.
It's like the idiot's way to go about 3D. Of course, you can use quaternions and matrices, and there's also a clean way to apply it. Just sometimes with just basic composition, it's often easier, and to me it feels more natural to React. It's also more like responsive to use just composition and pivot groups and stuff like that.
Okay. So maybe we should hide the math instead of showing it.
What?
No, it's an interesting takeaway because I love to show like some small trigonometry stuff. I love to show the math. I think it's cool, but maybe it's cool also if you can abstract from it actually.
But what I learned from it is that, if we really struggle to do something, I want to apply this matrix transformation to this, and it seems really, really hard. And like things like this happen so often. Turns out it's like the wrong way to think about it, and somebody else does it completely differently. But like with pivot points, I think one of the hardest things in general, you don't realize another way exists.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it also has to do with the documentation, because in 3JS applying a matrix is not hard per se. You just need to know the API. If you know it, and it's, I guess, a little bit particular, it could differ from other systems that you knew previously. But if you get to know a little bit, like a glimpse through the API, these things are the same, they behave the same. So there's no like inherent thing that React would introduce to make it harder. It's mostly like the opposite. Most of the code that you would normally write would just fall away. And the code that's left standing is just the logic, the basics, the math and stuff like that. And that's basically unchanged.
In the way I was thinking, about what we said about use frame and doing the imperative call. So you do the way they solved it, for instance, in React Native is doing animation values, where you can set some values without having a prop change, for instance, or is that something that would be also maybe possible?
Yes,
like
definitely.
a similar API with
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, React Spring can animate it, and the way it does that is by hooks. So you have a value. It could be like a prop, open, close, true, false, whatever.
Yes.
And what React Spring in general does is it like interpolates. The hook comes after this flag state, and then it says, okay, we want to interpret this state with like a Spring physics animation between 1 and 100, and then it just turns this into a animatable value. It's a class, and you just drop it in, like the div, span, mesh, whatever, and then it just goes. It animates. But there are many other ways to do it.
Nice. And React Spring, did it came also from 3D use cases, or it was a different?
No, it was
something.
It had more to do with like UI.
Just regular.
Yes, but it was inspired by, I think he's also a French guy, Christopher Chido. He's one like of the most well-known developers. He made
Inventor of React
Prettier.
Native, right? And Prettier?
And
Excalibur. And wow.
Yeah.
You can only change the game so often, but he does it pretty often.
He made animated. It's not a well-known library, but in React Native you use it like it's a default.
Yeah.
And the thing is completely out of the box. It's like unreal. It unhinges the way you normally handle prop updates, because in React prop comes in, component re-renders, and you obtain a view. And he thought, hey, but that's kind of slow. Before this, there was like React Motion, and I was like 60 times per second going through all the diffing, and now it would even be worse with hooks, because it would execute every hook again. So these libraries, animated, React Spring, Framer Motion, they circumvent. They handle the animation outside of React. It animates in a global, how's this called? Frame loop, request animation frame loop, I don't know, something like that. Yeah, and it applies the values by mutation, but in a safe way. I actually tried to ask the React team many times if you can please have an official construct for this, because that's for me the only thing that's missing about React. It needs something to be able to apply an update fast. Svelte can do it, Vue can do it, React just can't.
Yes.
In React Native, we say crossing the bridge.
Yes.
Yes. It does not apply in general.
I think it does kind of, because in web you do set request animation frame.
Yes.
And I think animation worklets in Reanimated. So in React Native, the animation API is inspired from an experimental web API, where they want also maybe this request animation frame to run on a separate thread than the JavaScript thread. So there are some similitude, but I guess it's much more acceptable in React Native, in web, to do request animation frame.
Of course, because otherwise React would like it goes through the reconciler, like a whole pass. It tries to have props changed, then it goes through each hook, then it goes through the children and the sub-children and so on. So it could happen, if you don't memorize components, that it goes through the entire graph.
Yeah.
And of course it doesn't do anything new. It doesn't recreate objects unless you use like objects as props, then it will, maybe. But it's a lot of effort, and it doesn't have to be like that.
But it's interesting what you said about maybe having a de facto standard way to expressing these things, because then when there is a new, let's say, web API that comes in where you can execute the animation on a worklet thread or something, then you have like, it's easy to adapt to these new APIs and new ways to do things.
Yes, definitely. It would be easier.
Yeah.
React just needs something that allows me to push an update to the view, if it's static, if it's non-conditional, without like causing the whole render process. It would be very easy for them.
I think we glanced a little bit over the different libraries you're responsible for. What's keeping you busy at the moment? What's next? What are you excited about in the future? And
I'm in the middle of releasing React Fiber version 6. It represents like a huge refactor of everything, makes the library smaller, more compact. And I think in the future I'm more interested in what you said, to educate the community, to teach people, to build something like an ecosystem, and to make this stuff more accessible in front end in general. So that's like the basic idea.
Nice. And what about the product you are building, Burley? What's the roadmap? And
we are almost before publishing it. We are in the beta phase, so there's like I think 30 people trying it out right now. We still have some edges to how do you say, even out, stuff like that. But we're really happy with what we got. It's if you haven't seen it, you can check it out. It's buerli.io, Buerli, and it's basically Blender in a web browser.
Nice.
Parametric, like a real CAD system. So you have like a shop. You sell bikes or machines or whatever. You can let people configure, like down to the very basics, sketching, constraints, and so on. That's the idea. It will come out, I guess, in over the next couple of months, little by little.
Amazing.
Amazing.
All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot for talking to us. I think it was so insightful. And yeah, let's keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you too.